Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of the Timesplitters Future Perfect preview disc. So in the last part we discussed about the arcade version, or the arcade mode of the preview disc, and how there's differences between the weapons, some assets used from Timesplitters 2 before the TS3 assets were being put into place, some leftover names from characters that you could play as in Timesplitters 2 but left in just as names in Timesplitters 3, and a couple of other things. There's a few other things I will go over after this segment of this video where I'm going to be talking about the story mode, such as a few other assets that I forgot to talk about in terms of the arcade mode. Anyway, so I'm going to try and do this as quickly but as detailed as I can, because the video is going to be really long if I go really slowly on this. So we're going to go to the first mission, which is Time to Split. There are a few differences in terms of this mission compared to the retail. Sometimes Hooded Cortez can get bugged out and take a long time to kill some enemies in some areas. There's dialogue missing in some areas. One thing I forgot to point out in the last part was that the sci-fi sniper scope is completely different compared to retail. It's differently textured and differently made, so to say. You'll see differences. Miller, who gets taken down by a sniper, takes well, he doesn't get taken down by a sniper, he gets taken down by assassins. He takes longer to die, which is quite interesting, so I think they fixed that in the retail. Now, this is what I find quite interesting, is that the mothership wreck can't be seen in the beta, or I think it's the retail. I'll point out which one. One of them you can actually see the mothership wreck, whereas in the other version you can't, which is really strange. You get more overrun in the turret segment of this mission, so when the time splitters are coming at you, it feels like you get more overrun on the retail version than you do in the beta version. The beta version seems to have a bit more of a lack of time splitters than compared to retail. The ending is different. You don't hold out against time splitters. As soon as you get to the base, the Marines are like, yo, get into the base and see Sarge, and that's completely it. You don't like fight a bunch of time splitters before getting into the base, which kind of makes sense. The cutscene going from mission 1 to mission 2, where you're talking to Sarge and Anya, the props, the NPCs are different in one scene, and there's one time crystal missing from the briefcase, which I find really strange. I don't know why that is, but hey ho, I guess it's just a bit of a mess up on the preview beta. Anyway, so moving on to 1924, Scotland the Brave. Some NPC placements are different in terms of enemies. You'll see that a lot in this preview beta. Enemies have less health, I think, in this beta. It seems like it anyway. There's also a missing double pistol pickup from an enemy. So when you get to the first set of doors that goes into the little bay hangar area, there is like a secret dual welding pistol enemy that you can find and pick up the dual welding pistols, but in the beta you can't, which is kind of funny. Item placements are a little different as well. You can see this mainly in that hangar area as well. The truck is a little buggy when firing at it. It tends to bounce a lot. I think they fixed that. Yeah, they definitely fixed that in the retail version, and definitely say that for sure. There's also a dead body next to the TNT this time as well, or there isn't. I'm not quite sure. It's been a while since I've written down these notes, but I'll compare the two anyway. The first wormhole cutscene is slightly altered. You'll see that in the comparison from retail to beta. All enemies are the same models. There's no difference at all. When you see Crow for the first time with his his lieutenants, they're all the same models. There's nothing different. Well, there's nothing different in terms of the enemies. They're all the same, which is kind of weird. When you're up in that sniper area where you can actually look through the cameras, and you actually go up the small stairs and you look down to where you came up at the start of the mission, mainly there would be enemies like slowly walking up and running up that hill, but instead you see snipers trying to kill you, which is kind of interesting. It's very different. Interesting. The Jungle Queen can be killed while saving her. I found this quite interesting. Even if you do kill her, it still carries on if you destroy the barrel and destroy the prison cell wall. It still activates as a success for saving her as a side objective. She's still in her Timesplitters 2 uniform as well, which is kind of funny. With the piano as well, before you get to the tank, there is no music like samples and segments like from other games. It doesn't work at all. Tank, so the boss for this level is really easy to kill. It can be killed by grenades even, which is mad. I wasn't expecting that, but yeah, you can like kill it in like 10 seconds, and it's crazy. So after that, there really isn't that much of a difference. The end complete screen is different. There's a few differences here and there in terms of the cutscene, but after that we move on to 1969, which is the Russian connection. Yet again, the enemy placement and spawning is different. What I find kind of interesting is when I was walking up the ladder on the tower, you can easily see that you can rotate the camera more than you can in the retail version, which I find quite interesting. The sniper sequence is easy on the beta version, which is kind of funny. On the retail version, especially on hard, it's a lot more difficult, and with the beta version, even on hard, it's really easy, like way more easier than what the retail version is. So obviously they've definitely upped the difficulty in terms of how hard it is to kill the enemies. Changing outfits is buggy in this mission. So obviously when you both get the disguise as you and Harry Tipper, it's actually a little bit buggy. They obviously changed this, but yeah, it is buggy. You will see. It's fucking weird. Okay, so after activating the water supply in the base, the engineers get triggered instantly. Instead of them like questioning why the water supply got activated, the engineers and enemies get triggered absolutely instantly, and it's kind of funny. So obviously they changed it up a little bit. There are no hostages either compared to the retail version, so you don't have the monkey or the news report or anything like that. There's no hostages whatsoever. There's no booty guards either, which I find funny. Even though you do see him walking into the base with Crow and Kalos, there are no booty guards to kill, which is kind of sad, really. Okay, so after that we move on to 1969, the Kalos Express. Starting objective is slightly different. I think it shows up differently than what it does to retail. I think there are less enemies in this version of the game as well, on this mission, which is kind of funny. There's less dialogue as well from henchmen on the radio. You'll see that in the retail version they speak a little bit more on the radio, whereas on the beta version they don't. There's a radio sound effect, I believe, from Timesplitters 2 from the Siberian Dam, due to the I think, yeah, again, this is another asset used by obviously the team just to add something in before they add something of their own. I believe it is the same sound from the Siberian Dam. When you go up to the building to activate the door to go into the like the Siberian Dam for the first time, you go up the first set of like stairwell. Well, the first stairwell, there's that door that you need to open up, and I think that's the same radio sound you hear. It's the same with the funky electrical effects as well. The effects that they use for the radios being destroyed is kind of cool. It's very different from the retail version. You can't smash the crates either, which is funny. With the service to air, when you take down the first helicopter, it only fires one instead of multiple. So in the retail version, you'll see that it fires multiple, but in the beta version, it only fires one round and it destroys the helicopter. The enemies, different enemies pop up as well in terms of this mission as well, so you'll see that every now and then. It's like that throughout the whole entire story mode. You will see basically loads of differences in terms of enemies popping up here and there. Rocket launcher ammo is KS&G rocket ammo, so obviously they're using other assets at the moment before they would make their own assets for different items. So like the rocket launcher is still KS&G ammo, even though it is rocket launcher ammo. The beta targeting HUD is completely different compared to retail. It is slightly altered, and you will see that in the comparison. There are no dual SMGs either, so like I said, with the enemies popping up, you would think there would be a dual SMG guy like they are in retail, but there isn't, so just kind of funny. So now we move into the luxury car of the train as well, and this is probably one of the most interesting parts of this beta that I believe. So the female dialogue is completely different. That's to be expected. But what I find really interesting is that on the projector, on the retail version, it portrays the upcoming missions that you'll be doing in the retail version, so in the story mode. But on this version, on the beta, you actually see even earlier screenshots of Timesplitters Future Perfect on these pictures, and because it shows the Timesplitters 2 ammo HUD and everything like that, and it's crazy. And even a screenshot where it says you've gained the terminal uplink as well, which I find really interesting. So I'd love to get my hands on that beta, but sadly I don't think I'll be able to. Also, the one-arm bandit minigame is completely different. You don't have characters from Timesplitters, you just have normal squares and shit. So they've definitely changed that. When you get to drive the cat mini, the mini cat game, or whatever the fuck it is, the drivable cat, it's completely buggy. You can't use it at all. With the last fight, with the Kalos fight, it is more fast-paced, very different from retail. A lot harder as well, I believe, on the beta, so that's kind of funny. Anyway, so starting off with 1994, Mansion of Madness, one of my favourite missions. The front door is buggy. It's buggy in the retail, but it's a lot more buggy in the fucking beta. When you get to the front entrance and you go into the first area where you have the stairwell, there are 2 scientists instead of 1, which is kind of funny. I don't know why they changed that. This mission tends to have some of the most major differences, I think, to be fair. The ghosts are a lot more harder to kill. Like, holy shit, these ghosts are mad. How do I say it? Their target collision is definitely a lot more. Their hitboxes, there you go. Their hitboxes are a lot more smaller than in retail. In this beta, they are fucking hard to kill. And I actually lost quite a lot of health trying to fight these ghosts. The first encounter with zombies is different. There is a comedy scene plus different dialogue. You'll see there's a scientist trying to take a steak from one of the maid zombies, and from behind it looks like he's doing sexual things with the maid on top of the pool table. But no, he's just trying to get out a steak, and Joe Best says something funny, and then obviously we find out they're actually zombies, and we're like, oh shit. The Deer Haunter is more killable. Like, it's easily, you can easily kill it compared to retail. Way more easy than what retail would be. There's no health bar either, which is kind of interesting. The kids' room that you'll see when you go up to the area with the beetles is completely different as well. It's just slightly different in terms of the what it looks like. The beetle cutscene when you first encounter the beetles is very different. With Joe Beth, she doesn't run away instantly. She kind of wants to fight for a bit, but then she kind of finds out she's going to be overrun, so she's there like, fuck this, and then she runs. Instead of retail where she runs instantly, in this beta she actually stays for a bit, which is kind of cool. The attic battle is different. Basically you have to defeat the ghost, which is called the demon. But instead of it being the Dead Wiener model, it's actually just a normal Ed Wiener. Now, this is what I kind of find interesting, is that the Mansion of Madness has a lot of differences that I haven't covered. I'll put a wiki link down below where you can actually see that there was a full-on objective for Ed Wiener and the Ghost, instead of just fighting her in the attic. There's a whole entire storyline, which is kind of cool. When you get to the scientist who tells you about the lab underneath the mansion, there's no health kit near him. So after that, obviously that hefty fight with all the zombies and the ghost, you will find it difficult to find health after that, because there is no health kit underneath him. Well, next to the dead scientist, or the scientist that's about to die. What I find really interesting is when you do fight Princess, it's very different. So obviously in the retail version, you can actually shoot her head, so where the eye sockets are, and it'll still do a lot amount of damage. Whereas in the beta, you actually have to shoot her eye on the stomach. I didn't know she actually had an eye on the stomach until this beta. What I find really interesting is that in the objective to defeat her, they didn't really give her a name. It just said defeat the big worm thing, which I find really fucking funny. So obviously they didn't have a name for her yet, but it's interesting what the developers will do. Anyway, so going on to what lies below, the second mission of this mansion. Sometimes, this will be quite interesting, sometimes Anya's voice will be replaced by Amy Chen. This is because Amy Chen was supposed to be the original Anya, and she'd be the one talking to you over the intercoms, whereas she got replaced by Anya, and obviously Amy Chen got put down to eugenics missions. Dialogue is yet again different at the start. There's no railings to stop people from falling in that giant hole where the scientist gets dragged down, which is kind of interesting. After detecting Jo Beth from the horde when she's hanging down, she constantly has a health bar. So it kind of makes you kind of feel like you need to protect her more, which is kind of interesting. When you get to the PC and you need to unlock the door, the operating system is different looking. Not majorly, but it is definitely different. After having that whole entire segment where you fight against the zombies when you're trapped in that room, there's no drunk scientist at all compared to retail. You'll see a lot of that. You'll see a lot of the drunk characters or drunk NPCs not being present in the beta, which is kind of fucking interesting. The experiment PC for when you're testing out on the zombie and the scientists are completely different. It's a lot buggier as well, which is kind of cool. Well, not really, but you know, it is interesting to see that they fixed that up in the end. Also on that floor with the science, with the experimentation rooms, there are extra zombies as well. You'll see a lot more zombies, that's for sure. I think there's only a couple more, but still, you will see a lot more zombies, which is kind of interesting. Now, this is another thing that I find interesting. So when you come across Young Crow, his voice lines are like kind of unfinished. They don't sound properly made, which I find really cool because like it just shows development. And comparing his beta voice to his retail voice, you can tell it's completely fucking different. When you're in the cart and you're heading down the rail track, there aren't head sprouters. Even though head sprouters are in the game already, they're zombies instead. So obviously they must have changed that during the development from this beta to the retail. Somewhere, I don't know where, but yeah, instead of head sprouters, it's zombies, which is kind of interesting. You can also crouch in the minecart as well, which is another thing I wanted to point out. The ghost cutscene is slightly different. There's also different zombies in that part also. It's a lot easier than the retail. There's a lot less zombie variation, I think, and also it's the fact that it's easier to kill the ghosts and the zombies, especially when you do the both different parts. So when you fight the ghosts and the zombies, they're both extremely easy on beta compared to the retail. The princess boss fight is different. Instead of a propane tank that princess has in her mouth, it's a crate. And it's only one shot to destroy the crate, whereas in the propane tank, you have to do like 2 or 3 shots and then the princess dies. But with this version, it's only a crate and it's only one shot and that's it, princess is dead. Crow's PC is different. There's a top secret file showing the monkey, which is kind of like a little nod at the monkey, which I really like. And also the final sequence is slightly different. Anyway, so moving on to 2052, breaking and entering. What I find interesting about this this part of the game is that, so especially on this mission, the outside looks very Timesplitters 2 looking in terms of the atmosphere and how the skybox looks. The signs and neon signs are different. There's no guard at the very start on the top of the stairs. You start instantly with a mag charger, whereas in the retail version you kill the guard and then get the mag charger. The mag charger fires really differently, which is kind of interesting. It has like this weird like lightning effect, whereas in the retail version it doesn't. It looks different as well. when you go into the X-ray mode, the game goes really fucking laggy. I don't know if it's because of my emulation or the ROM file that I have, but basically, in the retail version, I tested it out and it's completely fine, but in the beta, it's completely like janky. There's more janitor enemies than security enemies. The security room where you unlock the door is completely different. Gun turrets are completely different. Oh no, wait, no, sorry, my apologies. So yeah, basically, when you obviously get to the part where you find the time grenades and you basically get to that turret segment where you have to help Amy Chen. Basically, the security room is definitely different. The terminal is different, but also the turret section is different as well. When you're helping Amy Chen fight in that room, enemies only come from the right side when you're taking Amy. They don't come from the left side when you come through the window and whatnot, which is kind of interesting. The robots that fire at you and fight you, like the big ones on tracks, they're really buggy. They tend to stay actually, which is kind of funny, which I find interesting. There's also another line from Amy Chen as well. I think I might have recorded that. It's really weird because obviously Amy Chen's speaking to you, but Amy Chen is also with you in the fucking building, which is really strange. Okay, so obviously we move on to the second part of this story now with this mission, YouGenics. There are no spider bots at the start. Completely different to the retail. I hate the spider bots, but it makes me feel kind of happier knowing that there isn't any more spider bots in the beta. The changing cutscene is buggy as well. Yet again, we have the same presence as what happened with Harry Tipper. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because the change in character model was buggy. I'm not quite sure, but I'm glad they changed that, or fixed it anyway. There's a different iOS on the operating system on the computer at the checkpoint where you're checking your emails. There's weird emails, and there's also a weird henchman photo as well, plus info. It's really strange. You'll see it on the screen. You can obtain the SP machine gun very quickly as well, more quicker than what you can do in the retail version. When you do meet the iBots finally, and they're on the rails, they fire differently in terms of their fire rate, which is kind of cool. Amy Chen can get bugged with the sterilization shower. She can go in there and then she won't come out. So it doesn't break the game, but sometimes it can end up being a bit of a nuisance. There's a different scene, the doctors. Basically, when you first get the injector gun, there's a doctor helping out another doctor who's lying down, or who's sitting down on the floor, but basically this time you just have, on the beta, you just have the doctor run out to you, give you the gun, and then he fucking runs off, which is kind of interesting. So when you get to the kind of near the room where you would see the doctors being thrown up against the window at the start of this mission, there's less props there as well when you find the health kit and whatnot, which is kind of interesting. Also, another thing is that the mutants on the surgery table, surgery beds, when you butcher them, they don't explode, they just die, which is kind of cool. The dual security cutscene is different, different camera angles, less bots. I'm not really going to show much with the hacking part of this mission, but I will just say that it is very, very different. So, well, not hugely different, but I will say that it is slightly different, but not enough to really show. But what is interesting, sorry, my apologies. What is interesting is that the crow cutscene there's no crow cutscene, so you don't come across crow. You just start fighting his bots instantly, and what's kind of funny is that the activation for the boss fight, or this robot fight, is by picking up some sniper ammo, I think, which is really weird. Anyway, we're getting there to the end, hopefully. We're about, oh god, we're quite far in, but I think I might have to make this a two-parter. But anyway, yeah, so basically the dead body placement is different at the start with the machine walls, which is kind of interesting. Another thing is that the tank controls are definitely different. Both analog stick control the track, whereas in the retail version the left analog stick just controls the tracks, so it's really weird. There's no aim reticle for the tank turrets, so you have to kind of guess where you're firing at. There's different turret placement when on the assault, which is kind of interesting. And also the assault on the workers' entrance is very different, with there being no barriers to stop you from driving the Jeep right to the entrance. And the console you also use to take over the Goliath is very different compared to the retail. And also the objective is different from the end as well. So not that many differences in terms of machine wars, but enough to kind of you know, make it out. But besides that though, there really wasn't that much else on that mission. On something to crow about, we do have a henchman that you can see at the very start of the preview, well, in the cutscene, which is, I presume, just to be a placeholder. There's different dialogue at the start of the mission as well. There's different placements in terms of the health instead of being grenades. Also, Anya talks before your, obviously, companion gets the virus. There's more obstacles in the hallway leading to the first electric barrier, which is kind of cool. You have to use the electric tool on the battery next to the gate instead of the actual gate itself. No, which is kind of interesting. So they definitely changed that in the retail because I think it made it more easier. The Goliath's boss battle is named differently. With the in the beta it's called the giant robot, and also in the retail it's called the battle mech, which is interesting. Different smoke comes from the Goliath after you kill it. Instead of in the retail where it's green, the preview has just simple black smoke. There's also different music after fighting the Goliath as well. Different effect when firing the remote gun also. More items in the retail version than compared to the preview, just in terms of different locations. There's way less fighter drones in the preview than when outside Crow's Palace. I think there's like 4 in the retail, but in the beta there's only 2. Also, you don't fight. You don't have a cutscene before fighting the Crow. Fighting the mutant Crow. You don't at all, which is really weird. And also, Crow's named Creature in the retail version, but in the preview it already states it's Splitter Crow, so it kind of breaks, kind of gives you a spoiler, kind of. Okay, so we're kind of close. Now on to the next mission after this. We have no cutscene at the start, so none of that. There's no harpoo going at the start. There's also hotel music used for the mission instead of the normal music you'd hear, which is rather interesting. The hotel music being from the arcade mission, or the arcade map hotel, which is really weird. No sniper or sniper ammo in the control room, and also instead of valves there's levers in the preview version, which is really weird. And after, what was really weird is that I killed R1010, and then at the start of the mission Anya's original voice came up again, which was Amy Chen's, which is really weird. So I found that quite interesting, that Amy Chen keeps on making appearances as Anya. Yeah, again, way more different enemy placements. Basically, what I find interesting as well is that the concerned worker who hears the gunshot when you're trying to activate the drill is based in front of the drill instead of being in like one of the rooms in the preview, which is really interesting. And instead, sorry, my apologies. To turn on the engines, you use levers instead of the usual switches in the preview, which is interesting. Controls for the control room are different as well, and also the drill is very unfinished and features no drunk worker, so that's interesting. Like I said before, there's a few drunk workers here and there, but not all of them are there like in the retail. And besides that, mission 11 doesn't have any differences whatsoever, and with the last mission there is no cutscene when you encounter Splitter Crow again. Crow is very easy to kill, and that's because he doesn't have those, like, that shield on his backside, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, it's interesting really to see how different the preview beta is compared to the retail. What I just find interesting is the fact that you know, it's the fact that there are small differences that make a huge amount of difference, if that makes sense, in this game or this preview beta. And even if it's just dialogue, or even if it's just a few enemy placements, or, you know, whatever, it's very, very interesting, and that's what I love about doing these kind of videos. But anyway, yeah, so that's it for the story mode. There is a lot more information on the wiki if you want to go check that out. I'll post a link down in the description. I'll also post a link to where you get this ISO as well if you want to test it out and see for yourself the differences and whatnot. Going back to the arcade mode, there was one thing that I forgot to point out, and that was because one thing that was directly in my face when I was doing the arcade mode was that actually the team emblems are actually from Timesplitters too. So obviously in the retail version you just have the normal red skull, blue skull, green skull, yellow skull. Instead, in the preview beta they have the original Timesplitters 2 team emblems, so like the really weird blue one, the red one, the green one. You'll see what I mean when I show it, but anyway, thanks for watching guys. Sorry for yet again being on the hiatus again. Hopefully I can get these videos out as soon as I can. It would be amazing if I could. It won't take too long, hopefully. And also, next to come up after this would be the second part of the Medal of Honor beta. But anyway, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you guys in the future. Thanks for watching.